Now here's what I have. Listen, I want to talk about 5 of the hardest punching fighters in boxing historically. And then I want to see what you think later on in the championship rounds.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So this is my list. Feel free to leave comments, which I know you all will.
Yeah, I'm
with your own list.
I'm going.
Okay. And when you go in there right now. And when you leave your list, you don't have to tell me that my list is wrong.
You do.
Just tell me why you think your list is right.
You should subscribe and then tell him that his list is wrong.
Please subscribe and get the alerts so you know when we have new videos up, because we're going to be doing a lot of content. All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to go in no particular order. My top 5.
Get him.
Mike Tyson. Okay. From a heavyweight perspective, just one of the hardest punchers in the history of boxing.
Yes.
I'm then going to go with Julian Jackson, the Hawk. Probably had, I would say, 73 to 75% knockout ratio, but some of them were just devastating.
I'm telling you.
Maybe 80%. I don't even know, but devastating. Okay. Then let's go to the lower weights and let's look at Ricardo El Finito Lopez. Another guy, I think he was 51-0 in one draw, probably close to 83% or so with a KO ratio, if I had to guess. Now we're going to go to Randall Bailey, the KO king, who is hovering probably at 70% KO ratio. But some of those knockouts were devastating knockouts, and this just goes in that natural power category. And I'm going to round it out with someone that I know has a 93% KO ratio, who we've seen, with just devastating punching power, which is Deontay Wilder. So those are my 5, and I'd love to hear your 5 in the championship rounds.
Top 5 punchers.
Yeah.
And I will not necessarily do this in order.
Right.
But let's start with where we are
aligned.
We are aligned. Wait a minute. Who was your guys? You had Deontay, Julian Jackson, Mike
Tyson, Ricardo Lopez, and Randall Bailey.
Okay. All right. So we're only aligned on 3.
Okay. Still good.
All right. So Deontay Wilder. Absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
Deontay Wilder is, in my opinion, the most devastating puncher I have ever seen, period.
Right.
I've just never seen anybody. Well, he's the most devastating heavyweight puncher I've ever seen. The second one where we're aligned, I think, is the most devastating puncher that I've ever seen, and that's Julian Jackson. So just to kind of throw some numbers out there, Deontay is 42-1-1 with 41 knockouts, 93.1% KO.
Okay.
Which is crazy. Julian Jackson, 55-6. Coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, all 6 of his losses are stoppage losses. But 55-6 with 49 knockouts and 80% KO rate. That's pretty. 49 knockouts and 55 fights is really pretty significant for a guy who fought at middleweight and super welterweight. That's that. I mean, you are cracking. The third person where we are aligned is the person who we've been talking about quite a bit today, Mike Tyson. 50-6, 5 of his losses are back KO with 44 knockouts. I mean, I would say Mike Tyson is the most charismatic KO artist in the history of the sport. It's just something about a Mike Tyson finish that is unlike anybody else's finish. And I don't know what it is. I mean, what other fighter in boxing history inspired a Street Fighter character? I mean, it's just,
right.
Because if for anybody that doesn't know, Balrog on Street Fighter is made after Mike Tyson. So,
right.
So I wasn't talking about Mike Tyson Punch Out. I'm literally talking about Street Fighter, the character that's based off of Mike Tyson. So he's the most charismatic, polarizing KO artist. But where we're different, I guess mine is leaning a bit heavier on the heavyweight division, which is, I guess kind of sensible. in some ways. George Foreman, 76-5, 68 knockouts, a shade under 84% KO rate. My dad used to tell me something about George Foreman, and I didn't see it until I had an opportunity to watch the Joe Frazier fight from front to back. And there was another fight. I can't remember which one it was that I saw. But my dad used to tell me, he said, George Foreman is the only dude I've ever seen that knock guys out with a glancing blow. Like, it just like knock you out with a shot that just seemingly, didn't really catch that flush. Honestly, the knockout shot against Michael Moorer was flush, but when it landed, it didn't look like it had done as much damage.
It looked pushed.
It didn't look like, but when Mike lays down and then you see his face, I'm like, whoa, that just busted his nose. Right. So
or his lip, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was his nose was bleeding too. I don't know, I can't remember. I thought his nose was bleeding, but it was crazy. It's just crazy. And for him to have that kind of
heavy-handed.
Super heavy-handed. For him to have that kind of torque in his mid-40s is pretty significant. But the other guy that I have, and many heavyweights who fought him will vouch for this, is Ernie Shavers.
Okay.
Both Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes both said the hardest puncher they ever faced was Ernie Shavers, aka the Black Destroyer. 74-14 with one draw, 68 knockouts. Now, if you consider the competition that he faced and some of the people that he finished over the course of his career, we're talking about some people who were, he's got a good number of people on his record who he was either the first person to ever stop or the only person to ever stop. And to me, that sort of thing really speaks to a certain level of power, because if you're able to get a guy out that nobody else could, or if you were able to get a guy out of there who had demonstrated a great chin up until that point, right? And after that, now people start seeming to be able to get to him. That says a lot to me for the punching power, and Ernie Shavers has a few of those on his record. So those are my five. Yeah,
there's so many, right? I mean, there's so many. I wonder what everyone else thinks, because Foreman definitely, so heavy-handed. Shavers, same thing. I mean, there's just so many. I like my list, but I could probably give you five more.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, there's so many people who just absolute deleters as puncher. Just looks like you just tranquilize guys.
What was Roy's KO ratio? What was his percentage? I'm curious.
I'm going to look it up. I'm going to guess before I pull it up, and I'm going to say 72. 67%. I'm going to say 67%.
It's got to be over 70.
62.6.
You know why?
Because he fought.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to say, if we end it at a reasonable,
if you ended in 03, which is about when it should have probably
ended after the third Tarver fight.
Yeah. The majority decision victory over Tarver, which was 03, November of 2000.
No, I'm saying after the third one, like where he got KO'd, then he lost. That should have been the end.
Honestly, yeah. I guess you got it. Yeah. Because he lost 3 in a row. Lost to Tarver, then lost to guy knocked out by Glenn Johnson, then lost to Tarver again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what everybody else. Put them in the comment section, please.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely a crazy knockout fight. And then also you got to look at Marciano. Rocky Marciano stopped plenty of opponents, and he was stopping guys who otherwise we're having, 49-0 with 43 knockouts. That's 87% KO rate.
Right. But what was the level of opposition?
Well, it depends. Now you're going era specific.
Yeah.
But he fought everybody there was to fight during his era.
Right.
So it's really all you can really ask.
Yeah. It's really hard in boxing. It's funny. I saw something recently where guys said, I saw like a little highlight thing where guys said that Michael Jordan today would average 50 points a game. 45. 45. Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, so there's a guy that would have actually had more success in a generation where guys might be more athletic and have more performance. There's just, I guess there's no way to really know how guys would compare generationally.
Anytime you're comparing eras, you're kind of dealing with some things. But I think the reason why people say that with Mike, I know the reason they say that with Mike is because the rules are different. The game was far more physical. Fouls were not called as frequently. You could hand check in Mike's era. In this era, you cannot hand check, and the games are called much tighter.
Right.
And if you put Mike on the line, as James Harden is on the line, Mike's an 85% free throw shooter.
Right. So
and you don't allow anybody to put their hands on Mike, and you let him just go free.
Yeah.
He averaged 37 a game without even shooting threes. So now you
right
3-point shot too. So that for Mike's his whole thing rules.
Then go back in history, find out how many people Foreman knocked out from rounds 13, 14, 15.
That's true.
Okay.
Then that's an apples to apples comparison because he wouldn't have been in those fights.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, see how many of those guys were knocked out late, where if they were 12 rounds.
None, actually.
Right. But George is a different story. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, there could be cases.
Marciano is definitely that, though. I would definitely say that that's definitely a point there with him because he would wear guys out. And like, so the first time he stopped Jersey Joe Walcott was in the 13th round.
Oh yeah, but I mean, come on.
Right. But
the age gap.
Right. What you're saying. Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, Walcott was a diminished fighter.
Yeah. That was in 52. He knocked him out in the 13th round.
Okay. But I mean, look, it's interesting. I didn't realize that about, the whole basketball and, where that makes a difference. I wonder how many of these things would be factors today in boxing versus when the rules had changed.
Yeah, actually, it's weird because that's the only knockout on Marciano's record that took place after the 12th.
Okay, so maybe there's not.
Yeah. Who knows?
What about Shavers?
Ernie Shavers, doesn't look like he has any knockouts after the 12th.
Right. And none of my guys ever fought in that 15-round era. Right. Now that I think about it.
It started with Mancini Dooku Kim.
Right.
That's where the rule came from. So, yeah. And that was 81, I believe.